Welcome back to the Finding Hope podcast. We are in our second sermon in the book of Romans. This week we got to cover verse 16 through verse 23 of chapter 1. And deep passage here that we had in front of us this week.
Yep.
Well, it starts off picking up where you left off 2 weeks ago, Rick, with Paul saying, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. We've already sort of touched on that a little bit, and even in verse 17. So we won't get into as much of that today. We just, in the previous podcast, touched on verses 16 and 17. But it is a thing for us to remember of what Paul is saying he's not ashamed of. You know, yesterday we touched on that Paul was really pointing to that we're not ashamed of the gospel. What's the gospel? The gospel is good news. Mm-hmm. The gospel is what Jesus said, that he is the only way. That's not what our culture wants to hear, but that is what the Word of God says.
Yeah. So one of the questions I want to ask you, which is always interesting to me and maybe interesting to other people, is sermon prep and the flow and direction of how we put together some of these things. Because you took this passage and basically the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. And you kind of took that and you went all the way back to Genesis. Yeah. Why'd you do that?
Well, that's funny. That for me, some people might not know this. I got my start in kids ministry, and kids ministry was an awesome thing for me because kids ministry always goes to Genesis and talks about creation. Mm-hmm. And when I got into kids ministry, I jumped back into Genesis, and Genesis became those first really 11, 12 chapters of Genesis became something that I studied very deeply through seminary. And I just realized in that time of deep study through it that if we don't have a right understanding of how things started, then we don't understand how things are going now. So, for instance, on this, he's not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of salvation. The question that I immediately begin to think in my head is, what do we need to be saved from? So, to me, that is a question that goes back to Genesis. That's where the brokenness happened. That's where the fall happened, and that's just where I go when it comes to when I see stuff like this.
Yeah. And to your point, Will, I think a lot of people ask themselves that very question. What do I need to be saved from?
That's right, yeah.
I'm a pretty good person.
I'm a good person.
You know, I have a pretty good job. I do this, I do that. I mean, I do go here and do these things, and from a worldly standard, I'm pretty good.
I'm pretty good, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So that's where I end up landing when we get into a passage like this. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think 2 years ago we did Genesis.
Yeah.
We did Genesis 1 through 11, which I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, but every major doctrinal, foundational, really theology is found in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. The origin of sin, the need for salvation, how mankind became who they are, and how we got here. The eternal questions of who we are, where we came from, and what happens after we die are really all found in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. God really starts those things out.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that, and I don't know until this message that I had ever really thought about this, but one of the things as when you go back to Genesis and you begin to take this passage and you begin to look at Genesis and the creation story in light of this passage, all this is talking about is our unrighteousness and how we cannot become righteous and we can't do it on our own. I never had thought about Adam and Eve covering themselves trying to cover their own sin. I'd never thought about it that way. I knew that I had a good understanding of God showing and displaying his salvation through this blood sacrifice, but I never thought about them covering themselves and that picture of this self-righteous trying to do it on our own, trying to save ourselves on our own, and trying to keep it all in our own hands until this message. And I think Romans really pulled that out for me, is that this is not something that we can do on our own. I know that, but seeing that even from the very beginning, that Adam and Eve even thought they could fix themselves, if you will.
Well, I love it that, and God is very patient, and it is a very parent-like response to it, because he says, who told you were naked?
Yeah.
Or as Will says, naked.
Naked.
Oh, yeah.
Naked.
Naked. Who said you were naked?
got my
Lee Ship
clicker
does
out.
that too.
Yes, he does.
That's right.
Yes, he does. Like a neck.
It is naked. No.
So I mean, he said, "Well, who told you this? Who told you you were naked?" But the other amazing thing about God is that they clothed themselves with fig leaves. He actually had to kill an animal
Yeah.
and clothe them with the skin of the animal, and because sin always, the wages of sin are death, and that, there you go. In the first 2 chapters of Genesis, he just shows there now has to be a sacrifice of atonement for this thing that you guys did. You had one rule.
You had one rule.
You had one job.
One job and you messed it up.
Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting that you took it back there, and it was very appropriate that you took it back there. So explain to me, and Jesse, you might say something about this. When you hear the term like wrath of God, what does that conjure?
Well, I mean, like I said yesterday, I don't think our culture, I don't think our world wants to think about God as being a wrathful God, but he justly has that ability to have that wrath, because he's all, like, he created everything. It's all his. It's all. And so I see that. I see the wrath of God as God's justice, like him justifying his perfection. Like, you cannot come back to me because that's been broken, and that causes me wrath in that regard. And so, yeah, I think it's just, and we just don't, in our world, in our finite mind, in this world in which we live in, we don't want to see that.
Well, I think we can't. We have a very hard time understanding how can God be just, punish sin, but also be loving at the same time.
Yeah.
So he either has to be either or. He has to be the God of the New Testament, which is all mercy, mercy, and grace, grace, or he's the God of the Old Testament, which was wrathful and kill them all and I'll sort them out.
Yeah.
But God is holy, and that is the tie-in, because holiness is separation. Holiness is on a different plane of righteousness than we are. In order to approach God, we have to be holy as God is holy. We can't do that because we are sinful people. Therefore, God, in his mercy and love, created a way through Jesus that we can now approach God without the sacrificial system, without all of this stuff. God literally came down to us and said, I made a way, and that is love. And so, therefore, satisfying his wrath. But I think the thing that I was thinking about with the creation, and this was funny, how many times do we do something, create something, do something at work, and other people get the credit for it? You know what I'm saying? Like we sit here and we do something amazing, and somebody's like, Will, man, he's great. And I'm like, I did that, and they're like, no, you couldn't have done that. Now think about it from the perspective of God, and we have this pervasive theory that says this just evolved.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was God, I'd be like, are you kidding me? I made Bryce Canyon. Like, I took time in carving that thing, the Grand Canyon, and you just want to say, I just showed up.
It just is all luck.
Yeah.
Happenstance.
Or
Bang.
let me take that and worship that as God and not really the creator of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty frustrating.
Yeah,
you know?
he actually says that here.
I know.
I was gonna say
He actually says that. I sort of. It's funny because I think only in the second service did I get to that verse.
Yeah.
That I even read that verse because my plan is to start out there next week. But it's that's so true because it's not just about worshiping. Like we worship false idols, we worship other things, but we also we have people in our world today that worship the creation, the earth, and ultimately the earth as we see it in Revelation is going to be burned up. It's not what we worship; it's the Creator in which we were. And he says this there in verse 24. So.
Isn't there a passage in Isaiah that it's almost comical because he says, you take a piece of wood, and with part of the wood you build a fire. With another part you build like a table, and then with the third part you make an idol and you worship it. It's the same piece of wood. Yeah. Like, what are you guys doing? You know, you're making an inanimate object into something that you worship, thinking that it can produce rain. It doesn't have a mouth. It doesn't have eyes. It doesn't have anything. And I
think
guess,
it's Isaiah 44.
Yeah, I guess, and being a human being, that would be very frustrating to me if I were God.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that would probably bring about some wrath.
Some wrath. Yeah. This is true. Just thought about this. I pulled my notes up. I had some people comment. Did you like me writing on the text on the screen?
Yeah.
You've done
it on Wednesday nights.
I know, but I don't know that I've done it
on.
I don't think I've done it on Sunday morning. But I had a number of people, some teachers, who came up and were like, "That was amazing." It's something we do on Wednesday nights. But I felt like there's places in Romans where it's going to be a tool that I utilize just because the way that's the way I study. Yeah. Like I take the passage and I just begin to underline and highlight things and draw, like, because that just helps me see what it's talking about.
I think that's the difference between you and I. You see things linguistically. You see how the sentence structure is. I see things more as a visual picture. And that's what I love about the difference between you and I. Preaching, there are things, and what we do is visual aids to help, clarify the message.
Yeah, sure.
And who's the pastor in D.C., Passion City guy? Ben Stewart. Ben Stewart. Yeah. He explained translations of the Bible. It's like when you read the King James and you come across a word you can't understand, we go to the dictionary to find the different translation. So bringing in different translations of the Bible, it's all about clarity. Sure. It's all about helping us explain correctly the text to the congregation, so that there is a common knowledge that is a growth. And these tools are valuable.
Well,
in doing this.
It's funny because you say you see things visually. Well, that's for me. That's right. The visual. Like so for me, when I read. And I had have learning disabilities growing up. Like reading is a struggle for me, but when I read, I like to be able to hear. Mm-hmm. I like to be able to hear what the word is saying, but also see it. And sometimes if I'm not careful, if I'm not following along, just hearing it, if I'm not following along with my eyes as well visually, then I will miss what has been said. And so that's for me. What I don't in kind of the art of preaching, like I don't want someone just to hear us read this passage out loud and not see what's going on. And so,
no, that's good. What about you, Jesse?
What? Just kidding.
Yeah. No, I mean seriously. Like, how do you prepare? Like, what's sort of the best way for you to kind of get a grasp on it?
Yeah, it's kind of the same way. I like to sometimes listen to a passage and read it at the same time, or follow along with it. And I just immediately start writing everything that stands out to me. Yeah. Sometimes I'll end up with 10 points. Obviously we can't have a 10-point sermon.
Right.
but I'll just go through and just begin to read and to study.
Unless
and,
you're a Puritan, they have
yeah, that's just true.
15 or 20 points. But.
Yeah, and then just begin to kind of break those down into sections. And I think you kind of even mentioned this early on. It's one of the things I love about Paul is that almost all of his writings fall in 3 points.
Yep.
And it's just, if you're a 3-point preacher, then it works out beautifully. And so, but yeah, no, that's kind of what I tend to follow is just what stands out to me. And I don't know why for me, but life application is just so huge. Like everything jumps off the page that might be life application to me, which one thing I appreciate about you is you have such a historical mindset, and you always talk about how you love history and diving into it, and it's just really cool to see the different styles, but you also provide application in it as well, so which is cool.
Ben, I think I use the word loosely, evolve over the course of years. You prepare different, you learn differently, you grab different tools. I think Ben Stewart again said something about you read the passage and read the passage and read the passage and read, and it's like you're a helicopter surveying the land, and when you finally got the lay of the land, you land the helicopter. You get out and you look very closely at what the things that you've seen from the air, and that's usually what I do from Monday to Wednesday. Is that I just get as much information as I can, and really on Thursday put it all on paper. And that's changed. Over the years,
I can't tell you how many times that I have prepared and listen and listen and listen and read and read and read a certain passage, and then even submit notes.
Oh yeah,
even do that, and it'll be on a Saturday or a
Sunday. You're notoriously bad about that.
That will get. There's something at the end, like I'll just see that I had not seen, and it's like all of a sudden, like, oh, I can't miss that portion. I can't forget that right there.
Well, I think it's the subconscious rattling around in your head because it's all in your heart all week long.
Yeah,
you're just immersed in this passage, and you've said it, and we both feel this way. There are Sundays that we can almost just get up there without notes that we have been in it for so long, but if you allow it to kind of marinate for a couple days, and then on Saturday you'll be doing something you're like, wow, that really just, and that's usually when the Lord honestly gives me the best life applications. Is when I have let it just set for a couple days, and something will happen. I'll hear something, somebody will say something, I'm like, okay, that's my close.
Normally at 3 a.m. in the morning.
That's my left hook right there. As I'm gonna get them.
For me, yesterday it was my son walking into the auditorium with a pocket full of baby Jesus.
But that was an immediate analogy. Everybody was like, yes, he's suppressing the truth.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is even in that moment, it wasn't until I was on stage that I, like, it just clicked. And I was like, oh my gosh, Hudson did this. And
our best material is our kids.
Yes. Yeah. Always. Always. Well, let's continue through this this passage. Let's talk about creation for a little bit, because that's something both you and I are very passionate about. And I got in the first service, I didn't name what those pictures were that were from you, and I had a number of people go, that was so and so, and I was like, yeah, I know. Rick's already told me.
It was Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon.
Yeah, but I just love it, and I even got scolded by my wife because I didn't pick one of the pictures that she had sent me. But she, I mean, like, it's just amazing as you travel and you go different places and you see these things. How can someone see creation and not think that there is a designer, that there wasn't a creator, that this just happened? I think that's mind blowing for me.
Well, a couple things. Number one, if you've ever gone on a vacation on the Gulf Coast and you see the sunsets every single night, like it's every night, these painted skies that are better than any painting by human hand could ever make, and God does it every single day and every single night. The other thing too is, I've heard this, the two highest professions for Christianity and belief in God are astronomy, the study of the stars, and microbiology. Study of because those two have to come to the realization that this was not chance, this was done by a designer. And when that clicks, everything else has to come into focus to say, okay, if there was a designer, who was the designer?
Yeah.
And if there was a designer and he was God, then how do we communicate with God? And then they find the word of God. And then if one thing is true, then all of it has to be true. Yeah. Jesus, as Billy Graham used to say, is either a legend, a lunatic, a liar, or he has to be Lord. And there's no other way around it.
Yep.
And so when one of the dominoes begins to fall, and it all happens with creation, because they're without excuse.
Yeah.
They're without excuse, you know?
Well, I think this thing you said, it all comes to the fact of, are you my Lord or are you not?
Yeah.
You know, and no one's without excuse, right? And that's what I love right here. I mean, I think we all know some people who acknowledge that there is a God.
But Jesse, what about the guy on the island?
Right.
What about the guy on the island?
There is a God, but it all leads back to them surrendering their idols and submitting to him and his ways.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't want to do.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think, and that, I don't know who this guy on the island is. Everybody's worried about him. But I think the thing with that is you can literally go out and look at a simple tree and see the creation of the tree and even the mathematical structure of the Fibonacci sequence within that tree and how it has been designed. The stars in the heavens, the sand on the seashore, all of these things, if you really want to examine the truth in your heart, nobody's without excuse.
Right. Yeah.
And I believe that if you know, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, they will be filled. If someone is seeking God, and in our hearts, I believe God has created all of us with a desire, an innate hunger to know the truth and to seek him.
Absolutely.
And we suppress the truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's good. I think that is, I think it's so overlooked even inside of the church that, and I gave this illustration, but so often people, we polarize those public sins, but there's so many people who are carrying around things that they're hiding, and we're always wanting to point at someone else suppressing their own truth in our own life.
Yeah.
You know, holding our own pockets with baby Jesuses in our own pockets, and yet not acknowledging where we are. And I think that's, let's talk about this for a moment. How do we foster a culture of authenticity and vulnerability inside of our church?
My biggest thing is there has to be a culture and an environment of grace. There has to be. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was reading this book called Crucial Conversations, and the gist of the book is this: we want everyone to assume what we're saying is positive, and that we have the best intention with what we say. Yet when we talk to other people, we immediately go negative with everything everybody else says. Can you believe they said that? I bet you they said this because of this. Do you know why they said that? You know why they're talking? You know, and we have this mentality that we filtered the lens of negativity in, but we only want people to understand. I didn't mean it like that. I wasn't trying to say that. We say that kind of stuff all the time. And we jump to these assumptions that if we are going to assume something about someone, it's virtually always negative.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's the same with our sin. If we find out that someone is doing something, if someone is caught in sin, or someone has this problem, quote unquote, we are very short on grace. Yet we want everyone to give us as much grace as possible.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can foster a culture of grace. Now listen, we're not excusing sin. We will hold each other accountable. But I think the scripture tells us that the reason we hold each other accountable is because we want reconciliation.
Yeah.
If you reconcile a brother or sister from hell, man, you have saved their life.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of Christianity as a whole. We're not here to judge. We're here to hold each other accountable, but we need to extend as much grace as possible to people. Assume the positive.
Well, something you just said in our previous podcast, we jumped to Romans chapter 6. Romans chapter 6 starts out, so what should we say then? Are we to continue in in sin that grace may abound? By no means. He says, by no means. So we're not like, we don't just, it's not okay. It's not a grace bath. It's not okay just because there's grace available that we just keep on sinning. No.
Right.
But we have to give room for grace in situations, especially inside of the church, and realize that just like I went to John 7 Sunday with the woman caught in adultery.
Yeah.
Like Jesus writes in sin. What he writes in sin, I don't know, but what he says is,
I think it was the man's name. Where's the guy?
ooh,
I mean, there's
Or
two
the
people
sins
to
of the other
tango. I
people.
mean,
True.
you know,
this is true.
Why did he brought up here? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
So
I've also heard the sins of other people.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's you
it's
that
been a
said
long day though.
Ooh.
He'd just been sitting there writing
Yeah.
and writing and
that.
writing.
Just started writing.
You know
down
what's amazing about that is that Jesus never wrote anything on paper. Like we have nothing physical of Christ because we probably would have worshipped
Ooh, that's true.
the
Yeah.
thing and not Christ. He only wrote in the sand that blew away, you know? So but yeah, you're right. The woman caught in adultery. The only person that could have thrown the first stone didn't.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty crazy. So I do want to hit this before we end, because this has always fascinated me, and I want to get your take on who he's talking to here.
Okay.
Verse 21. Although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give him thanks. Who's they? Although they knew God, they knew him. They didn't honor him and they didn't give him thanks. Who do you think he's talking about?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think that could be a broad context, and well, two things. I think there's all throughout the line of this, there is a picture of the Israelites. Of although they knew God, they did not honor him. I went back to Exodus with the golden calf Sunday, but I think there's a picture of that where he continues to go back to point to the Israelites and how he continued to show them, be faithful to them, promise them, and yet they continued to, even after these miraculous things that he had shown them, go back and worship something they created with their own hands. But I think also in the context of who he's writing to, Rome. Like I just pulled up like just Roman gods. You've got Jupiter, Juno, Neptune. I mean, they had all of these, Apollo, all of these gods in which they had created in some form or fashion with their own minds, their own hands, and they were worshiping them, although they knew God, because a lot of these are named after star, like these are planets. So they knew God. They were acknowledging that those were there, acknowledging his creation, his divinity in that, but yet they're sitting here worshiping those things that were created by the Creator. And I think that's where he gets to in verse 24, is that they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator. Who do you think they're talking? I mean,
I think you're right. I think it is kind of a circular thing. He's talking about mankind as a whole.
That's what I was. Yeah.
He's talking about the Jewish people because they literally saw the divine hand of God bring them out of Egypt. They followed the flame by night, the cloud by day. That's a bona fide miracle. All they had to do was look in the middle of the camp.
Right.
Manna was produced every single day, and yet all the way up until the end of the 40 years, they were still going after Moabite gods, Ammonite gods, all of these things, and bringing it into the camp and bringing it into the camp. And God kept saying, look, I need you to separate yourself. I need you to separate yourself off from this because all of this is false. And then you get, 500 BC where Isaiah is, you guys are still making idols. What's wrong with you?
That's exactly what I was going to say. He may have been talking to a specific group of people, but just how applicable it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously, but just
there's a passage in Jeremiah chapter 10. It says, for the practices of the people are worthless. They cut out a tree out of the forest, and a craftsman shapes it into his chisel. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammers and nails, so it will not totter. And he says this, like a scarecrow in a cucumber field. Their idols cannot speak. They must be carried because they can't walk. Don't fear them. They can do you no harm, nor can they do any good either. They're useless, So real quick, because this same verse 21 ends by saying this, and I think this really sets up for next week's sermon, because this is where everything starts falling apart with humanity. Right here, he says, I'm sorry, although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give him thanks, but they became futile in their thinking, and in their foolish hearts were darkened. That as they continued to not give God honor, not give God glory, not give him thanks, their hearts became more and more dark. And he finally says, fine, I'm going to give you over to a debased mind.
So I'm in the middle of
Yeah.
preparing for this next one, but he says 3 times. It says 3 times in this next section through the end of the chapter, God gave them up. In verse 24, in verse 26, God gave them up. And in verse 28, God gave them up. He gave them up. And so that's something we'll tackle this week and into the next podcast. But that's ultimate because of their sin, because I think going back to this idea that they didn't show the Lord honor or give thanks to him. They became futile in their own thinking, making their own images, worshiping their own creation. God says, "Okay, fine." Almost like your kids.
Yeah.
Your kid, and it's an example I'll probably use this coming week. But with your kids, like your kids keep doing dumb stuff, and you're like, "Fine, do it your way."
Yeah.
You
Did
know.
already break the hearts of our kids this past week. So
I did break the hearts of our kids.
How's that?
I haven't even told you. Avid, our nephew, apparently stayed in the sermon. I didn't know this, but he said he told Vicky. He said Will said my parents, they don't need me, because I said that. But he didn't, I didn't realize they were younger. So he called mom and dad while they're still in Cincinnati and was like, Will said that you don't need me anymore. So I probably
You were really blatant about that. You're like, listen, your parents don't need you.
Yeah. But in all reality, my point in that, God doesn't need us.
No, he doesn't.
And I think that's the
desires that
thing. Yeah.
relationship.
And I think that's the thing that we miss, is that we think that God needs us. And that's where many times I actually, it's so funny. I preached that yesterday, but this morning saw a reel of a prosperity preacher saying, God needs you. God needs your money. God needs your, and God doesn't need any of that.
No. Yeah.
He doesn't need anything from us. He wants a relationship. And I think that's the beautiful thing. You brought this up at the beginning, how this links back to the beginning. That's why it links back to the beginning, because he created us without having to, but wanting to.
Right.
Wanting to create us, and then even with us failing, he wanted to save us. He wanted to fix it. He wanted to make it right. And so this is a beautiful picture of the gospel and what he really desires for us.
Yep.
So
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Can't wait for more.
it's exciting. We got some good verses coming up in the
Yes,
next week. So
Ready to hear it.
Let's go. Well, that does conclude this podcast. We hope you'll join us for more, and hope you'll join us on Sunday morning.
See you next time.